Welcome to this edition of Utah Libraries Have You Covered. We are coming to you from the Utah State Library. I am GuestJeri Openshaw, along with Jason Powers. Hi, Jason. He's running the board. And today we are very pleased to have with us the Assistant Director of the Division of Indian Affairs, James Toledo. Hi, James.
Hello, good afternoon.
How are you?
Doing well.
We've been together a long time.
Yes, we have. And it's my first time being in the hot seat for the podcast.
Well, how long have you been here? We've been together a long time. I think you've been here as long as I have.
Yeah, so I'm the Deputy Director for the Division of Indian Affairs. Been with the office for about 11 years. It'll be 12 years in September this year.
Wow. And where were you before?
Before, I was an intern up at the University of Utah, so I was a student there. Before that, I was working at a law firm, a local law firm here in Salt Lake City, just providing their front desk support and receptionist type work. But yeah.
Sounds good. How did you find out about this job? How did this all come about?
It came about as an internship opportunity. So I was a student up at the U, and through the American Indian Resource Center, which is a local center at the time, which was a place where Native students could go and just kind of mingle and hang out, get to know other students and stuff. And so there was posted an internship for the Division of Indian Affairs. And so I'm like, hey, I've always wanted to work in Indian affairs as far as the government side of things, working with tribes. Helping to better relations, and so I applied, and that's how I got my foot into the door.
Who was the director back then?
Shirley Silversmith was
Shirley,
director.
that's
yes,
right. Yes.
So worked with Shirley until she retired, and now Dustin's been working as the division director since 2020.
Great! What a year to start.
Yeah, talk about getting when he first started. It was this like kind of baptism by fire, and
I'm going to be home.
Just kind of got thrown in, and we had to pivot to working from home and all that fun stuff.
Yes, indeed, COVID got us. So you are a member of which tribe? There are how many tribes in Utah?
There are 8 tribes in the state of Utah. I'm an enrolled member with the Navajo Nation, so we're one of the 8 tribes. The other 8 tribes, I'll just start from that region. Yes. So north of Navajo Nation, there's the Ute Mountain Ute tribe. They have a small community called White Mesa between just south of Blanding. And then to the west, there's the San Juan Southern Paiute, who also share their ancestral lands kind of encompasses modern day Navajo Nation. So They have a small community near Navajo Mountain and Tuba City, Arizona. And then we have the Paiute Indian tribe of Utah. So that's in southwestern Utah. And they're comprised of 5 constituent bands. And so those 5 constituent bands make up the Paiute Indian tribe of Utah. There's the Shivowitz band, the Cedar band, the Indian Peaks band, the Kusharam band, and the Kanash band of Paiutes. And so they form the Paiute Indian tribe of Utah. To the east of Salt Lake City, we have the Uinta Ouray Utes, and so the Ute Indian tribe. And so they're in the Uinta Basin region. And then west of Salt Lake City, we have 2 Goshute nations. We have the Skull Valley Band of Goshute, as well as the Confederated Tribes of Goshute. And then north of Salt Lake City, we have the Northwestern Band of Shoshone Nation.
Wow. Good job.
So
it's like a test.
So now your listeners know that there are 8 tribes in Utah. 8 tribes in Utah.
And we won't make you go through it again, but that's incredible. Good for you. That was great information. So as a member of the Division of Indian Affairs here at Cultural and Community Engagement, what does that encompass? What does that include? What do you offer?
Well, a lot of our work does focus around government-to-government relations. So we work directly with state government. So we work with the many agencies that make up state government, and also with tribal governments. And so a lot of it is that liaison role where essentially we're just putting tribal contact with a state contact. The tribe may come to us with a specific issue or concern, and they want to know who the counterpart on the state side could assist them in that issue. And so we essentially will make those connections. We also provide training to state agencies. And so these trainings are designed to really just give state tribal liaisons tools needed to help them do their jobs better. Just like cultural sensitivity training, just how to work with tribes, how tribal governments are structured, and really just anything that the liaison groups want to learn more about is kind of what we're going to be, what those meetings are designed to be. Since the pandemic, those meetings have been put on pause, and so we are in the process of reviving those meetings, and so we're planning to do that in second quarter 2025.
Crazy. Tell me how that works. How do tribal leaders become tribal leaders? What's the protocol?
Well, it's just like our elected leaders. Tribal leaders are elected officials for their respective nations. So each tribal nation will have their own policies and procedures. If a candidate is, wants to run, then this is the process you have to follow. And so each tribe is different. So they have their own procedures that you have to follow. Once a candidate completes that, then they're officially on a ballot, and then depending on the tribe and what the campaign length of time is going to be, is going to all vary. But essentially, they are, when it comes down to it, is they are elected officials, and so that's where the government to government piece is really important, and why we work at that level, because we're not a racial class, we're a political class, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, like with myself being a member of the Navajo Nation, being Navajo isn't a race; it's a political affiliation I have with my tribe, with my nation, and so therefore I'm a citizen of the Navajo Nation, and so that's one area of like what we try to teach our state agency liaisons is that tribal governments are not a racial classification, and so there is that political relationship that exists, and it is noted in our Constitution that Congress has the power to enter into treaties and stuff with foreign governments and tribal nations, and so that's where that stems from, and why the state of Utah has taken the responsibility to oversee tribal relationships and within the state, and wanting to make sure that it is as robust as it can be. Granted, we're not perfect, but there's always that desire to continue to improve and to educate.
So that's the bottom line then. Overseeing actually means to educate, answer questions, or explain. What is oversight from our government?
Really, it's all what you just said.
Okay.
A lot of it is educating, because a lot, oftentimes people are not going to know.
Right.
And so we do have to educate, and through that education process, each individual is going to absorb and understand things at a different rate. But, our purpose really is just to answer those questions and,
Sure.
Be that safe entity, so to speak, where, if a state agency has a question, it's like, hey, we don't want to, be disrespectful, please help us understand this. And so that's where they will reach out to my office, and, we can have those conversations to where we can answer those questions and kind of help them along the way to help them feel comfortable. And so when that time does come for them to engage with that tribe, they feel confident to start those relationships to be built.
So would it be safe to assume that each tribe has its own group of leaders?
Yes.
Okay, so they're all elected, like
Correct.
an elected official?
Yes.
Okay. How many leaders are there generally?
It's going to vary, again, tribe to tribe. Navajo Nation their government is structured pretty similar to the U.S. federal government system. So there's 3 branches of government. Within their legislative branch, which is the Navajo Nation Council, there's 25 delegates, and those 25 delegates have their jurisdictions are going to vary, and so but again, you have a jurisdictional area that those delegates are responsible for representing. And for Utah, there are 3 delegates that represent the Utah side of the Navajo Nation.
Interesting.
And again, other tribes are going to vary. Again, I would say most councils probably have about 5 members, so it's a 5-member council. But again, I don't want to say that all tribes are structured that way. So each tribe has its own governmental structure. But when you're looking at it from a higher level, you could see similarities, but we don't want to assume that all tribes are structured and operate the same way, because they are not the same.
Even in the past, there's a lot of political contention between candidates. Does that happen in tribal races as well?
Yeah, I mean,
same thing?
Same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, you have candidates, citizens who are running for these offices within their respective nations, and you are going to encounter different perspectives. And so, I think that just comes with any governmental office that you're running for. You are going to encounter differing opinions and so forth.
One thing I find so interesting about Native Americans is that they're so steeped in tradition. Tell me a little bit about your traditions, things that are very important to you and your family. For mine, this is just my family tradition. So by any means, this is not how all Navajos celebrate and so forth. Exactly.
And each family is going to be unique in how they approach the traditions, because, for my family was not a traditional family. So, I grew up in a Christian home. My parents my mom went to a Christian boarding school. My father went to a federal boarding school. So the idea of traditional Dene teachings were not handed down to my parents, because that's not the environment that they grew up in. Mm-hmm. And so when they started their own families, started their family here, they moved from the reservation to Salt Lake, because that's where all the jobs were.
So you are from Salt Lake?
I am from Salt Lake, yes. The rest of my family, my brother and my sister, they were also born in New Mexico. So I'm the only one in my family from Utah.
Born in Utah.
So my family moved to my parents moved to Salt Lake, and this is where they ended up settling and where they raised their family. And so, I guess my family traditions are probably going to mirror a lot of the traditions that your listeners have.
Of course.
We celebrated Christmas, Easter, all the big major holidays. It wasn't until I started actually working with the division that I started learning more about my culture, specifically Navajo, or even just other Native American tribes. Like the Ute Nations will celebrate the bear dance. I won't go into significance in explaining that, because I don't want to provide any misinformation on that. But, so learning about how different tribes, what their annual celebrations are and things like that, I thought was very interesting, and is one of the aspects of my job that I really enjoy is learning that. But then, also growing up, we would spend our summer breaks down on the reservation with my grandparents. And so doing that, I learned how to drive at a very young age. So at the time I, was going through driver's ed here, I kind of really knew how to operate a vehicle and do all that stuff. But I also learned how to shear sheep. We did branding. So my grandparents had a lot of livestock. So there was sheep, we had some cattle, we had some horses. And so just kind of, so I learned how to brand at a very young age, how to ride a horse, bareback, and, things like that. And so it was a fun experience. And it was nice just because, again, I think spending our summer breaks down there on the reservation allowed me to have those experiences that I wouldn't be able to have had I been up here in the city.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds terrific. I think I kind of want to do that. You have how many people working in your division?
So my office, there's 4 full-time staff members. So we have our director, Dustin Jansen, myself. We have a cultural liaison, Jacob Crane, and we have an admin assistant, Rosanna Benali-Sag, and we have one intern, Tracy So. She's currently a student up at the University of Utah, and she is studying health promotion, and she's actually going to be graduating next week. So Yay. We're excited to see her graduate, and she's the commencement speaker as well.
Yeah,
so
that's true. I heard that.
That was a pretty awesome honor, and we're super, super proud of her.
So you're all different tribes, maybe?
No. I guess Jacob's the only one. He's a First Nation, so he's Canadian. So he's Tsuna Nation, which is up near the Calgary area. And the rest of our staff are members of the Navajo Nation.
Navajo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was we had an interesting huddle you presented to us last week, which I thought was really interesting. And we learned a lot. And Dustin and Jacob, they did a Native American song, and it was really nice. Tell me, so each person has responsibilities in your division. What would each one do?
So our office is kind of divided into like 4 main strategic points. And so we have a government-to-government relationship connection. So and that, again, is overseeing those government-to-government communications. That's like where our Utah Tribal Leaders meetings fall under, our state tribal liaison meetings, our tribal caucus day, tribal consultations. If we're asked to facilitate or to establish or, to schedule a consultation, we provide that. We also have then the second, pillar, if we want to call it that, is community. So that's our community-facing efforts. And so that's like through our annual Utah's Indigenous Day event, through our Day on the Hills that we do annually. We also, Rosanna and myself are trained and certified to register Navajo Nation citizens to vote for voter registration for Navajo Nation. So we do offer those services. People can call and schedule an appointment, and so they'll come in, bring the documentation that's needed, and Navajo citizens living up here can come to register to vote for Navajo Nation. And then we also, in the past, we've done some community resource fairs where tribes or other entities will reach out to us wanting to put on a community resource fair. And actually, I think the last one we held was here at the State Library.
Right. And I think, anyone's invited to those, correct?
Yes. Those are community. They're open. Well, the one that we hosted here at the State Library was from Navajo Nation. So Navajo Nation brought, I believe it was 7 or 8 of their divisions that provide services to Navajo citizens. And so they wanted to do some outreach to the Salt Lake City area. So they reached out to us, and, we worked with the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. So they were kind of our co-partners, as well as Utah Foster Care. The 3 of us essentially co-hosted and put on the resource fair. And it was well attended. We were, I think, blown away by the amount of just really by the success of the event. I think it was a 2-day event, and we had about maybe almost 425 people that came during the 2 days. And so that's one area we try to build our focus on the community. The other area of our strategic focus is cultural preservation. So we do that through the Museum of Utah. So Jacob is our staff person that's working closely with the museum team to help with that consultation piece. So
you're talking about the new museum that will be opening?
Yes, the new museum up at the state capitol. So Jacob's been working with the museum team to get tribal input and tribal voices included in that process. And so Jacob's been really instrumental in overseeing that. We also have a human remains program. We work closely with State SHPO and other entities to oversee that process. And we also have a small community sponsorship program. And so that's kind of our way of supporting cultural preservation or cultural related events in our community. And then the last, the other strategic point is focusing on our internal operations. And that's just kind of overseeing how we're structured internally, how we communicate. So we like our weekly team meetings, our marketing and communications. So if for those who follow us on social media, the frequency of the content that's been being put out there is part of that process. So Rosanna and Tracy are really the heavy lifters overseeing our marketing and communications, records management, and just really our internal operations.
There have been so many events that I've attended. I've just really encourage people to watch for, I know you have one coming up, but not until August. I don't know if there's anything in between, but the Native American Summit in August at UVU?
Yes. So we have our annual summit. This is our largest event that we put on. And so we have usually about 450 to 500 attendees. And really, it's a fun event for anyone who's wanting to learn more about, the Native community here in Utah. We have an opening plenary session, and then we'll have breakout sessions that are in different topic areas. So if people are even just wanting to come and learn, I think the summit is a great event to do that. We have an exhibitor stroll as well. So, a lot of information is shared during that time. And really, it's just a great way to connect with the community and just to learn more about the issues that the community is focused on.
One of my favorite things about going to a summit, one of your summits some years ago, is Adopt a Native Elder. And one of my friends runs that program. That doesn't really have anything to do with your group, but it's an interesting group.
It is, and there's a lot of great organizations that are community run. So my office may not be part of that, but again, we support the great efforts that they do. Like the Adopted Native Elder program is a wonderful program, and they do a lot of great work, and we're happy to support even if that's just sharing when events are happening and things like that. So
you mentioned foster care. Tell me a little about that.
So Utah Foster Care is a nonprofit organization, and they work closely with the Division of Child and Family Services when it comes to foster care placements. And so over the past couple of years, they have a focus area of increasing the number of Native American foster homes. And so Stephanie Benali is the person that oversees that portion for them. And so she's really instrumental in educating the community and just answering questions about foster care in general. And so we've partnered with them on some events. Like they usually do an annual run each May, and it's the Moccasin 5K run and walk. And,
I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, and so May is National Foster Care Awareness Month, and so that run is kind of really to bring awareness to the month, as well as the need for more Native American foster homes. Yeah.
There's so much. We could just talk for days and days. There's so much history and so much currently going on. What's one thing you would like folks to take away?
The Native community is here. We're here. We're not in the past anymore. If people want to learn more about my office and the events that we put on, they can either visit our website at indian.utah.gov, or they can just follow us on social media. I think we have Instagram and Facebook accounts, and so that's where we usually will share a lot of information about the events that we're hosting, or just really sharing events that are happening in our community.
We could go on for hours, but James, it has been a real pleasure. Thanks for sharing a tiny bit of the information that you guys put out there. I really appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much. And thank you all for joining us today. We are coming to you from the Utah State Library, a division of the Department of Cultural and Community Engagement. Services offered through the Utah State Library include library services for the blind and disabled, the Bookmobile program, Book Buzz for book groups, Utah's online library with useful databases, and Libby for audiobook checkouts, and so much more. Check out all the services at library.utah.gov. That's library.utah.gov.